This episode is sponsored by EnviroClean Scotland.
Delivering innovative drainage, industrial and environmental solutions. Find out more at evcsl.com or call them on 01355 268 282. And we are back with another episode of the Let Me Be Frank podcast, and it's a particularly special one because normally the man sitting to my left is Frank McAvenny, but it's not today because it's Owen Coyle. Right, don't worry, we haven't sacked Frank.
Far from it.
We haven't sacked him yet, but he's on probation. No, Frank is still in the Maldives and joins us live. And with a palm tree behind you. How you doing, mate? You okay?
Very well, thanks. You don't understand how hard it was for me today because it's 6 o'clock over here, half past 6 or something. And I stopped drinking so I could do the podcast. How good professional is that?
Oh, that's professionalism. It really is. That's well done, mate. We're delighted. Well, we've got somebody who doesn't drink at all, so it does impress Owen.
See, to be fair, because we've been on for about 6 months for me to come up and do it. And obviously I'm based in England, so I said to Frank, I'm coming up. So I drive up through Storm and Bram to get here to find out you're lying in the sunshine in the Maldives. So absolutely brilliant.
You're looking as you've spent your entire time there indoors. I don't see much of a suntan.
Not recognise me when I come back. It's the best tan I've ever had. Yeah, it's
fantastic.
Really good over here. It's beautiful.
Right, listen, we're going to batter on because lots to talk about, and we're going to try and break a habit a lifetime and keep it contained within the hour. So, in fact, Frank, get your thoughts on this first because I haven't spoken to you since the Celtic Hearts game at the weekend in Wilfried Nancy. 2 days to change the formation. And what was your thoughts? And do you think he's been getting an unfairly harsh time over his tactics board?
I'm going to be honest with you, maybe only agree or not agree, but I thought he's coming in and he's splitting. What he's going to do is he's going to come in and put his ways down straight away. Now, whether it's the right thing or not, I thought, considering the chances we had, we wouldn't be having this discussion about Wilfried Nancy if the boys had took a chance. We could scored one that either scored. I missed it.
Hang on a minute, Frank, you're kind of breaking up a wee bit, but hang on I'm going to go, what we'll do is hopefully that'll kick back in, but I'm going to get Owen's thoughts on it as well. Well, what Frank was saying there basically was if Maida had taken his really good chance early on in the first half, and actually played quite nice football. Did you get a chance to watch it?
Yeah, listen, goals, and Frank knows this because he was a supreme finisher. Goals change games. I think from a managerial point of view, which I'm well versed to talk about, is that I think Frank's point is that he's going to play his way, he wants to implement it straight away. I get all that. All I would say is, and I think the boy's going to do really well. I mean, I think he's a good appointment. I think he needs to be given time because there's this narrative that they lost the game and everything was wrong. I mean, give a man of time. I'm sure he'll be a great appointment. All I would say with the experience that I've gathered and everything else is that Celtic hadn't been playing well. Martin came in, kind of steadied the ship. I don't think they were playing overly well, but they were back to winning, which ultimately Glasgow Celtic need to win. Celtic or Rangers, you need to win. And the other thing being they won during the week. Then obviously they'd been off the day after that. The next day they come back in is a Friday. That's a recovery day. There's not a lot of work getting done there. Maybe the boys that never played will do a wee bit extra. And then obviously you come Saturday, which in the modern days minus match day one. Yeah. And that's really, you can't be overloading them because you need them sharp for the game. So I don't think they would have had a lot of time to implement what you want. That's the only thing I would say about that. But you're right, had they scored and won the game, then everybody's raving about it. And that's the nature of football, particularly, and Frank knows this better than anybody, when you're under the microscope at Glasgow Celtic. Yeah. I think he's going to be a good appointment. I think, of course, he might look back and think, maybe I should have just kept it the way Martin had it to win the game. Because I know it's the big picture everybody looks at, but had they won, they're 3 points clear plus a game in hand, having turned round an 8 or 9 point deficit. It'd have been a remarkable turnaround. But that being said, they've still got plenty of games, plenty of points to go and win another title.
And what about this idea of playing three at the back, all with left feet? Is that as big an issue as people are making out?
Well, I think in an ideal world, in an ideal world, you always want balance in your team. You know, you want the right players in the right positions, comfortable on the ball and different things. Although a lot of teams play with wingers now that cut in and on their stronger foot. But again, there's not many times you'll have a back three and they'll all be left-sided players, that's for sure. But they're all good players. Yeah. They're all professionals. They're top clubs. International players. So there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to deal with it as they did. Yeah. So I think there's been a lot made of it. I mean, the guy's in the door, give him a chance. I'm sure he'll be a great appointment for Glasgow Celtic for sure. And but again, it's just people looking. It's on that day. And the other thing you've got to say as well, I mean, Derek McInnes is a very good manager. He's got, and they had a point to prove having had a so-called sticky run. So they come in, they'll sit behind the ball, they score their goal, and then they become even more difficult to break down. Yeah. So, there's a lot to think about.
So, we were talking about before we started recording, Frank, and Owen was making the point that some of the grief that Wilfried Nancy has already been taken because of the tactics, the board they had on the bench and calling Callum McGregor back and forth during the game. Similar already to some of the grief Russell Martin was getting at Rangers, possibly unfairly. Would you think?
Well, I don't know what his take on this would be, but I thought you coming in, he's got 3 really tough games. Me as a player, I would want to come in and start and get into the games. I'd love to play in the games. So I would imagine as a manager, we'd want the games, but coming in and changing it like that and then putting the skill board out, as I call it, it's not very good for me. I can see him unstable again.
But how does a manager get his... Sorry, and how does a manager get his point across? I mean, Jock Stein used a tactics board.
Yeah, the other thing being, this is the thing about, as we know about winning and losing. Had Celtic went on to win the game, they'd been saying, "Oh, look, he showed them on the board." How so? Ultimately, it comes down to, and this is the thing I think Wilfried Nancy will grasp now at Glasgow Celtic. We all want to play. Everybody wants to be pleased in the eye, but ultimately you must win because they've got. You look over the success they've had, and it's win, trebles here, everywhere else, and they're looking to carry that on. And I think that was at the back of it, having overhauled the 8-9 point deficit, you've got a chance to go 3 clear plus a game in hand, what you would think would be 6 points, and I think that's all kind of been part of the whole thing. Or the tactics board, somebody mentioned about his footwear and different things. The bottom line is he's shown, and this is somebody that's been at the game a long time. He was a youth coach, was an assistant coach, and then he stepped up to be the head coach. Did very well at Montreal, did very well at Columbus, and now comes into Glasgow Celtic with the best squad in the country, no doubt about it. 1 or 2 out of form. Yeah, I think as well, when you look at the injuries Celtic have had and the players missing, I mean, Johnson and Carter Vickers, I think Johnson's a huge loss. I think he's an outstanding player. I think when he plays, it makes his wide player, the winger, better. And I think Celtic wingers haven't done as well as they have previously. The Celtic wingers were always scoring, they were chipping in. The strikers as well. And this is a part that, when it goes back to what the Celtic fans about, I think when you look at Celtic, well, I'm sitting here with Frank, that's the type of strikers I always felt that Celtic should have had. Yeah. Frank McAvennis, Henrik Larsson's, Kenny Dalglish's, Brian McClair's, Van Hooijdonk, Cadetti. I mean, these are top, and we kind of get away from that a wee bit. Yeah. And so I do understand that desire to have those top players at the club.
Do you know what? Just before we're going to talk about the Roma match, Frank, we were discussing the tragic news about Dixie Deans yesterday, and it got me thinking too that having a lot of kind of WhatsApp back and forth from my pals about that Celtic team, a Celtic team which was of the era of the Quality Street Kids, and it was post Lisbon and so on. But you had Harry Hood, Dixie Deans, Kenny Dalglish, Vic Davidson, and all these names.
I was really lucky I got to know all them, because obviously Kenny was down at Liverpool. He used to bring a boys club team up every year to play. The team, John McHugh ran from the Oatlands and our school team, so I get partly with Kenny, and then I got to know Dixie when I used to meet them in the lounges up at the games. I mean, God rest him, an outstanding man. And I mean, obviously we talk about player, but he was a really brilliant guy. And you mentioned that era. I mean, the quality of player they had, it was incredible.
But I said to my mates yesterday, what would we give for an attack like that? And they're like, even just one of them at the moment.
But there's no doubt we've spoiled many years. But you were actually going to ask me this later on anyway, but did you ever come close to playing for Celtic? And I think as players, we always think we're better than what we actually are. So for me, as mentioned there, the Celtic strikers, I think as a Celtic supporter, should be Frank McAvey, Henrik Larsson, Sutton, Hartson, these top players, the ones I mentioned before. And to be honest, if I'm honest, then I don't think I should ever have been good enough to play for Celtic as a striker, as one of those first choices. But there was a spell in the mid-90s when I was at Bolton playing really well that Celtic, when the strikers they had, I probably thought, well, I'm maybe as good as them. When I was at Dumbarton, I was 19, I was invited to Celtic's under-20s, a tour in Switzerland, and Big Whitey was captain, Derek White, Anton Rogan, Alex Marthy, really good players, myself and Stuart Mackay for Dumbarton. I did great, and Celtic had put an offer in at the time, never get accepted, so obviously couldn't have wanted me that much, it'd be easy enough to buy you for Dumbarton. And then when I was at Bolton, Lou McCarry was the manager, and had made an offer. And actually, Bill McMurdo looked after me at the time, and Bill was brilliant for me. I loved him to bits. And Bill said at that time there was no mobile phones. He said, it was transfer deadline day. He says, go back and wait in the house, wait by your phone. Lou McCarry's going to come. But anyway, Bruce Rioch turned it down. It never happened. And then actually that summer, Andy signed for Celtic because Andy was out of contract.
Yes.
And we played at Bolton together. Andy had a really bad cruciate ligament injury, came back fit in January and eventually get into the team later on. But Andy was obviously had done really well at Celtic before. And the funny thing, I don't know if Andy told you this story when he was on or not, but he'll not mind me telling. Andy, being quite clever, his father, when he'd done his contracts, Andy had a clause in his contract that if Bolton sold him for over £400,000, he'd get £50,000 as a lump sum.
Right.
And anyway, Andy's fee went to a tribunal. And normally getting a tribunal, you try to help the club you're buying. So when they went in, they're saying to Andy, have you become a better player? And he's, I'm 10 times a player when I left. When I left. So anyway, I think the fee the fee arrived at $450, and of course Andy got weighed in. He's a clever lad, Andy Walker.
That's good. I love that. But so tell us about. In fact, no, very very quickly. So Roma tonight, because obviously this is Thursday morning. Does Nancy stick with his three at the back? Does he doesn't succumb to pressure and maybe go back to the lineup that was doing well under O'Neill?
Well, ultimately, up to him. All I would say is I think he's probably a wee bit more time to work with him, or even just to explain his ideas better or how he wants to do it. The other challenge as well as a coach is you have to have the players to suit the way you want to play. I mean, that's key. I mean, we all have different ways and you see the game differently and people want to play it this way and play it that way. But ultimately, in football, you've got to have the players that can help you to do that. And the more good players you've got, the better chance you've got of success. So my point is, you don't want to be forcing players into positions that they don't feel natural or you get the best from them.
Yeah. Frank, you might have missed it, but I think Kieran Tierney came out, yesterday and said he loves playing in a three at the back. Yeah.
He always has done.
He's got something. Obviously, he's done it for Scotland quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Tierna's always relished playing as a three. But
you're doing your Norman Collier bit again.
I think to Frank's point is, and I think the big point for everybody is to understand is this is the way the manager wants to play.
Aye.
But you can't just click your fingers and it falls into place. It takes hard work on the training ground. It takes repetition. It takes understanding. So it's not going to happen overnight. Yeah. But to be fair, you've got to give the lad a chance. You mentioned earlier about Russell Martin. I don't know Russell Martin, but I thought the way he was treated was terrible. That boy had absolutely no chance from the get-go. And the biggest failing wasn't Russell Martin. Rangers are poor players. Mm-hmm. So it didn't matter who you put. It didn't matter, Frank. It didn't matter who you put in there. That team wasn't good. They weren't good enough to win the league or whatever. And I felt, I thought the boy was harshly treated, Russell Martin. Sure.
Well, look, Frank, your second time at Celtic when you arrived back in the early 90s. Do you remember your debut?
I do. Yeah, it was. It was at Airdrie. I wasn't fit enough. And he says, will you give me an hour because a couple of the strikers were injured? And I says, yeah, no problem. And we went out, and it was funny because we're talking earlier about tactics. I'm in the dressing room with Tom McStay, Peter Grant, John Collins, all these players. And I'm sitting in the Airdrie dressing room, all cramped in, and Liam Brady's got the board out. And he goes through all these players. I'm over as if I look out the window. And Liam says, what are you doing? I says, I'm just making sure we're not at the Bernabeu. I says, fucking some of the players that we're playing against. I says, it's Airdrie.
Aye, well, listen, one of the players you were playing against is sitting in this studio.
Exactly. I hope he spoke well. He must have been raving about me, Frank. Thanks for that.
He was good on about you all the time. You know what it's like.
It's it's funny you mention that, Frank, because even like in the modern day when we talk about the high press and different things, Airdrie, Frank will tell you, that Airdrie team that I played in was the best I've ever seen at a high press. The challenge we had is when we got the ball, what we could do when we got the ball. But that team had got promoted from the Championship and we came into the Premier League, went to the Cup final against Rangers in 92 and played in Europe and different things. And getting the ball back, we were that high press. We pressed like you've never seen anything in your life. But when we got it, that's when we didn't have the same level of ability as
what did we do with this?
Aye, exactly. But my point is, people want to now ban these new phrases. And,
yeah, well, that's one of Frank's sort of hobby horses.
It's the same game.
Aye.
You know, there's
just different ways of describing
100%.
it. The low block and the high block.
Yeah.
It's just like we used to be called close somebody down.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Owen, 249 goals and 669 career appearances.
I'm going to correct you on that. That's not actually. So Frank will know this. I think that's Wikipedia, isn't it? So that,
as if we would use Wikipedia. Yes.
Yeah. No. The reason being that's actually in league goals.
Right.
So I actually finished with 297 goals. I was 3 short, and when I moved from Airdrie to become St Johnstone manager, and the last 3 or 4 games of the season I couldn't play because I'm not saying I would have got it and then I became player manager at St Johnstone. I kind of come off the bench, but I missed a couple of chances I would say to score. But the funny thing about that was I had a big goalkeeper called Matty Glennon. He'd been a kid at Bolton when I played at Bolton, and I signed him as goalkeeper at St Johnstone second half of the season, and he still reminds me to this day. But anyway, we were playing Ross County, losing 2-1, 3 minutes in injury time, and he came up for the corner and scored an overhead kick. So he messages me every year, Gaffer, how are you? Just to remind you, that season I outscored you.
but those are sensational figures. Without blowing smoke up your backside, but those are ridiculously good figures for a striker.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I could do, I was a very good finisher. Right. And ultimately, I think Frank knows this anyway, because I met Frank when I was younger, because Frank was friendly with Brian Gallagher, who played with my older brothers, Joe and Tommy.
Was it Brian Gallagher played at St Mirren?
St Mirren, Kilmarnock. What a gal, was a great player and a good pal of Frank's. So that's when I got to know Frank when I think it was about 6-7 years between me and Frank. But Frank was pally with Joe and Tommy, my older brothers, through Brian and everything else. So they were brilliant days. But I was 5'4" until I was just coming up for 19. So I was to sign for Dundee United when I was 13, but my father was friendly with Sean Fallon, God rest him, who was the assistant manager to Jock Stein when Celtic won the European Cup. And Sean said to my father, young Owen's better with his older brother. So my dad says, you're signing for Dumbarton. So I think I was only that ever schoolboy signing. A £5 a week, it was an S form at the time. But I used to be down with those players twice a week, part-time. And the knowledge and everything again was amazing. So my training was just every night, because there was no at that time a part-time team. I used to shoot into Big Tom Carson, the goalkeeper, until the first team were ready for him to join in.
Right.
But my point was the upbringing and what you learn was incredible. But had I been at Dundee United, they would have released me at 16.
Yeah.
But Dumbarton allowed me just to get taller. I went to 5'11 and a half. I came on. I made my debut. I actually came on for Thomas, my older brother. He was the captain. He came on, and I scored in my debut with a minute to go against Hugh Sproat. I think we got a penalty they brought, and everybody, the senior players, were scared to take it. And for the Gorbals, I'll take it. Slotted at home. Had I missed, who God knows what would have happened. And then obviously I went on to be fortunate enough to score a few goals.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned Hugh Sproat, right? Because being a person of a certain age, I remember this clearly. In fact, younger viewers or listeners won't know who Hugh Sproat was.
I don't know him either.
You were at a higher level, Frank.
He was goalie for Motherwell and Ayr.
That's right.
And he used to do a thing, whenever he played against Celtic, he wore a blue top. Whenever he played against Rangers, he wore a green top. Yeah. And he was a total character.
He was. But there was loads. Frank will tell you the amount of characters that was in the game at that time. I don't know if that was because there wasn't any social media and people are out to go and do different things.
But get away with things more.
Probably. But there was some. I mean, there was unbelievable.
We spoke about it before, talking about how young players don't get an education now that they deserve football. When players come in, as you say, the experience you got playing with all these older guys. What do you think about that? Do you think that's ever?
No, I think there's merit in that, Frank. I mean, I remember even then, my time in England in the Championship and the Premier League, the PFA stopped the kids for cleaning the boots. I mean, I used to go to the bar and clean every first team player's boots and do it with a real bit of pride, because I know they'd say, right, they'd look after you, but equally you wanted to make sure but that was something that was taken away. So I think there's loads of little things like that's happened for sure. And if you remember as well, when the first team was playing, the reserves were playing at 3 o'clock in the opposite stadium. You remember that, Simon, back in the day?
Yeah.
Now, I know finance and everything plays a big part in that, and logistics and everything else, but there's nothing better than these young players playing in the big stadiums to understand what it's all about.
Yeah, well, the youngsters used to say to me, when I came back from injury, if you're playing, you're telling them where to run, you're telling them what to do, and that must, because it helped me when I was starting in the game. So I just think it should be something that they should think about bringing back.
Yeah, for sure.
So obviously, everybody remembers you as and in fact, no, I'm going to say this first. You said 10 minutes ago that in your eyes, Celtic strikers should be Henrik Larsson's, George Cadets, all these people, not you. Had Celtic signed you, the first thing I do is I look at someone's stats. Now you score. It doesn't matter what level you play at. If you know how to score goals,
I think you'd have cruised.
So the point I'm making is
to qualify it a little bit, what I would have said is, had I been a squad player and those games are getting late and you're needing a goal and you're getting enough ball in the box, because I've got to be honest, I played at 10 stone as a striker, which is unheard of.
Even though you had that iron brew and a fish supper
that was the Friday night. love my fish suppers for sure. That's Tam Cowan's old favourite for off the boggy, Tam I mentioned. But because I could finish, I knew where the goals are. What I didn't have, I wasn't physically, like, wasn't 13, 14 stone, so you had a challenge against big. So my game wasn't fighting centre halves or hold the ball. It was running down the side, and I was fit. I mean, I was like, I could run. I was like one of the the Kenyan long distance runners. I was still running, so that was a big asset I had, and I looked after myself. That's why I probably played till I was 40. But I wasn't lightning quick. I was sharp. But Frank will tell you, and this is the thing. Ultimately, and it's the same these days, to play at the highest level, the Premier League in England, you need obviously ability, but you need pace and power. And the more pace and power you got, and actually there's some boys in that league probably playing not with a lot of ability, but a lot of pace and power, because they recover things quicker. So, but what I would say is, for what I had, I think I was pleased with what I'd done in the game and where I went and what I did. Played in the Premier League, played international. I think that's a wee bit of the Gorbals in you.
I think we all think that, but only because I didn't think I was good enough to come up to Celtic. I was the same as you, and you come up, and you would have done the same as me. You just took it. Because you're for the Gorbals, I'm for Milton, and we just crack on with it.
I'm glad you said that, Frank. But I think, to be fair, and I'm always honest, I mean, not because you're sitting here. I mean, the attributes you had, that was and you showed that at West Ham. I mean, the highest level you can get. So I think I'm always trying to give a bit of balance to it. Yes, I think I could have scored goals for any team I played in, but I think at those clubs, the number 9s would have had far more of a rounded game, shall I say. But to come into a game late and get a goal, absolutely, there wouldn't be any problem with that.
So your actual total then, if you include, 249 league goals, the total was up at
297 all total cup ties. I love the cup.
So is there one goal above all else that sticks out that you're particularly proud of?
I was really lucky. I mean, because obviously the clubs I played in, but if I had to, and it's difficult to say one, because different things mean different things.
Well, give me three.
Okay, well, I was fortunate enough as growing up as we did. We used to see the FA Cup final. You see Wembley, so I was fortunate enough to score in the playoff final at Wembley for Bolton. We're 2-0 down against Reading. Reading missed a penalty. Stuart Lovell, I think, after 25 minutes, that they made it 3-0, but he missed it. We come in at 2-0. And then the second half, and I scored the goal late, 12 minutes to go and make it 2-1. And we went on to win that 4-3 to go to the Premier League. Wow. So and there was a story behind that, because Bruce Rioch was my manager, and Bruce Rioch's knowledge of the game was second to none, Frank and Simon. But I have to say this, and I was probably my own worst enemy. Frank mentioned come for Gorbals. We always had something to say for ourselves. So if Bruce was going to, I don't want to call it a scapegoat, he was going to leave somebody out, it was going to be me. To change things up. But that year also, we went to the Coca-Cola Cup final against Liverpool. We had a great team at Bolton. John McGinley, David Lee, Alan Thompson, Alan Stubbs, Jason McAteer. I mean, the players, you could go through them all. So it was a really strong championship team, which ultimately got promoted. But I'd played every round of that cup run, and we got to the final. And the week before, Frank, we were playing Portsmouth at Portsmouth, and we signed on the Friday, we signed Gudni Bergson, from Tottenham, who went on to be an unbelievable player for Bolton. But we signed him on the Friday. He was on the bench, number 12 at Portsmouth on Saturday. John McGinley was away playing for Scotland, and me and Miksu Patalainen were the two strikers. So we came in at half time. I was wearing number 11 that day, and Goodney was next to me, number 12. And we get beat 1-0 at half time. But I played really well in the first half, or certainly I thought I had. So Bruce Rioch comes in at half time, and he, left me without a name. Never mentioned anybody else, just left me without a name. And then he finished and he went away. And Goodney Bergson tapped me in the leg. He says, "Owen, I do not understand. I thought you were our best player in the first half." I said, "Well, goodness, so did I. But I've worked it out. He's going to start John McGinley and Miksu in the cup final next week. So he ladles into me just now, and it kind of justifies his decision when it comes to it." So anyway, if I could have played any better in the second half, I get back out, and I did. Beat 2 or 3 men along the byline, cut one back, and Miksu tapped it in, I think, for 3 or 4 yards. We drew one each. Good result, Portsmouth away. So he came in at full time, and again, just totally went for me, Frank. Left me without a name. So Goodney Bergson never even got on in the game. Goodney said, "I don't understand." So anyway, come the Monday, I always revealed. He said, Bruce Rioch said, "I'm going to name the starting 11 for the cup final versus Liverpool." So he named and he came to the strikers. Up front, John McGinley, Miksu Patalainen. He says, "I'll name the 3 subs later in the week." Because that time, you remember, Frank, you had 2 outfield and you had 1 goalkeeper. There was only 3 subs at that time. So, and then what Bruce did was he made the rest days that was in the first team players playing a reserve game at Stoke on Tuesday night. Now, I'd played 90 minutes at Portsmouth. Anyway, played in it, being professional as always was. And then come the cup final was Sunday. Come the Saturday, Bruce had went down to London. He was going to meet us at a hotel. Colin Todd took the training. So Colin Todd finished the training. He says, "Off to name the subs." So Frank will tell you, football players that work the starting 11, right, who's going to be in the bench? You always talk about each other, and you think you know who's going to be in the bench. So we said, well, it'll be Aidan Davidson, the sub goalie. It'll be Mark Patterson, who'd been the club captain, the left side midfielder. I says, "No, in the lat, it'll be you, Coyle, as a striker. You played last week, but you play all the games and everything else." So Colin Todd says, "All the subs, Aidan Davidson, Mark Patterson," and I'm waiting for old He says, "and Goodney Bergson." Frank, Goodney Bergson hadn't played a minute. He'd sat on the bench at Portsmouth. And Goodney says, "I'm sorry." Well, I said, "It's nothing to do with you, Goodney." So I was blazing, and I'll be honest, I went in and I thought to myself, "Do you know what? He can keep the cup final. I'm not going to the cup final the way he's treating me."
Yeah.
So again, I had my shower, and we'd brand new suits and shirts and ties and everything. And as I came out of the shower, John McGinley's my really good pal, and he said, "Coyle, look what you doing." I said, "Honestly, John, that he can't even tell me my face." And he says, "I know." He said, "Wait," I said, "I don't even feel like going." He says, "You really feel that?" I said, "No, I'm going to go. That's how I feel, but I'm going to go because ultimately it wasn't the players that picked the team. I'm going to be there for my pals."
Yeah, of course.
So I went to the cup final. We lost 2-1. Steve McManaman was unplayable. And Alan Thompson scored an unbelievable goal for us. Tom was a wonderful player, great lad, and finished 2-1. And Bruce had a point. He wouldn't let you see him the day before the game, minus match day 1. So I went to see. We're playing the Tuesday the following week. Went to see him Monday. "No, you can't see me." So he left me out the 14 for 3 games, and I couldn't get to see him. And then we were due to play Everton, the replay of the cup, Frank, at Goodison. And I came in the Monday because the game was on the Wednesday, so I got to see him. And I said, about leaving me out and different things. And he said, "Well, I'll speak to you tomorrow." Out you go, like that. But you never speak. So anyway, the following day, this is true, the Tuesday, I'm in the boot room, Frank, and I was always first in and I was always last away with a court we could play head tennis, the old Burnden. But anyway, I've come in, so I walked in, I was aware somebody came in behind me, and he said, "There you go." I said, "What's that?" He says, "Your medal." I says, "Medal for what?" He says, "Cup final." I says, "Been back to the Gorbals," but I says, "Well, I never played in the cup final." He says, "Oh, you played every game in the cup." I says, "Well, except the one I counted." So he's starting to get angry. He says, "There's your medal. You want your medal, you know?" And I couldn't resist it. And I said, "Is my £3,000 appearance in there?" Because everybody was in £3,000 appearance. So fuck you. So he just threw the medal. "Take it or don't," and stormed it. So he was some man, Bruce. It was some. But my point is, I get back in the team. And I started every game from there to the playoff final. I know we're away in a tangent, but the reason I'm mentioning that is, had I felt sorry for myself,
chucked the dumb out the pram.
I would never had the experience of rocking up at Wembley, scoring the goal that helped get your team to the Premier League. And that's why I always say to people that football, you're always going to get a punch in the nose. Right. It's how you respond, how you pick up, and how mentally strong you are to bounce back.
Fantastic. So that was one of your top 3, right? Yes. The next of your top 3, keep this answer to under half an hour if you can.
The following year, went into the Premier. I'll make this quick. Following year, we were in the Premier League with Bolton, and I was on the bench, and I just never wanted to play. Simon, I was in the Premier League, but I was sitting on the bench 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and I had the opportunity to come back to Dundee United, who'd lost their place. And that year, end of the year, I scored the winning goal in the playoff final. So 2 years in a row, I'd scored in playoff finals to take Dundee United back to the Premier League where they should be. And I'll finish off with, actually I scored in my debut for the Republic of Ireland under-21s. I had the choice under-21 to play for Scotland or Ireland.
Yes.
And actually the game was against each other at Easter Road. It was the night before Mark Lawrence had scored at Hampden. And that then went on when Gary Mackay scored the winner in Bulgaria. Ireland qualified with Big Jack for their first tournament. But I had the choice, if I'm honest, the Scotland team was an unbelievable team, but the biggest reason it was for my parents. Both my mum and dad from Donegal. They came here, they'd sacrificed everything to raise 9 of a family, and it was a huge, huge thing for them. And we were kind of brought up in what it was called Little Donegal, where we lived in the Gorbals.
So, I mean, it wouldn't have raised many eyebrows, you playing for Ireland, because of that background. Exactly.
So, and to be fair, I scored after 90 seconds Easter Road. And you talk about senior players, Frank. Big Alec McLeish played that night as an overage player, and so did Campbell Money. Alec was come back for injury. Campbell was there to help the younger players that Frank mentioned earlier. And I think it was why Big Alec probably signed me later on at Motherwell, because I waltzed by him then round Campbell Money and managed to roll one in. So that's 3 goals for you there.
Oh, fantastic. So, obviously, a man of many clubs. Not just as a player, but as a manager as well. But your managerial career has seen you wash up in some amazing places, the States and India, and you're not scared to travel.
No, I mean, listen, we love the game. I mean, I'm really lucky. I've had my career in football. Had I not, I'd be playing with my pals at 5 or 6 because you love the game. And if that enthusiasm, passion never leaves you, then you shouldn't be in the game. But again, I mean, I've been really lucky that I've met a lot of good people and I've worked with good people at a lot of places. And starting, I mean, I won myself and Yogi. I should probably mention that goal as well, because we took over from Ian McCall as player co-managers and won the league. And I actually scored the day we won the league. So you're winning it as a player, you're winning it as a manager, and so it was just, and it was the last season at Brockville. So it was amazing, and that was a year actually, Simon, you know this, they never allowed Falkirk in the Premier League because they says we couldn't ground share.
That's right.
So anyway. So from Falkirk, and then obviously Jeff Brown at St Johnstone was brilliant for me, and then did very well at St Johnstone's, and then obviously to Burnley and the team we built at Burnley, because we had to sell players. I mean, I remember I watched the show a wee bit back, and Big Cahill was talking about. So I'd sold Cahill for $4 million to Rangers.
You can tell us a bit more about that. That's quite an interesting.
Well, when I came into Burnley, so Burnley were. The budget they had was probably in the bottom 3 in the league in the championship. They were in the bottom half of the championship when I came in, me and Sandy. And they said to us, listen, you're going to have to sell a couple of players, but if you sell them, we'll give you some of the money to get your own type of players. So in the January, I sold Andy Gray to Charlton for $2 million. And you'll love this because when he was the top scorer at the club, Frank, but he hadn't scored for 10 games. But a really nice lad, Andy Gray. Did a really good career. That's his lad now that plays for Tottenham.
Yes, aye.
So Andy, really good player. But anyway, Alan Pardew was at Charlton, who'd been relegated for the Premier League before, wanted to buy, and I had no problem, but they were trying to circumvent it. So Andy Gray rocked up on the Friday morning, and he said to me, he was in my office waiting on me, and I was first in, 7:30, 8:15 in the morning. I says, you're in a bit early, Andy, can I help you? He says, I want to go to Charlton. I says, that's brilliant, I want to go to Barcelona. I says, but here we are, we're sitting here. So what happened was they told the boy to come in, but the boy thought I already knew about the interest, but I hadn't. So between the agent and Alan Pardew and whatever, they tried.
Breakdown of communication.
Correct. And I says, I genuinely don't know what you're talking about. And the boy's face got red and red. He says, have Charlton not been in? I says, no, not yet. I kind of worked out by that time. I said, so I suggest you go back over. So, all right. So we went away over to the dressing room anyway. So, hey, Alan Pardew phones me. And he said, oh no, I'd like to buy Andy Gray. I says, no problem. I says, we're willing to sell it. He said, brilliant. I says, $2 million. He says, oh, we can't pay $2 million for him. I said, well, there's nothing to talk about then. No, I'll give you. I says, Alan, you're not listening. My chairman will accept $2 million. If you've not got $2 million, if you've got it, come back. I'll do the deal today for the boy. He's like, oh, well, I need to come back. I said, that's what you do. So then Andy Gray was back at my door again. I said, Andy, what is it? He says, Charlton. I says, well, I've kind of worked out what happened. You want to go to Charlton? I says, if Charlton pay $2 million, you can go. And he said to me, Frank, you'll love this, because he was a strike in and scored 10 games. And he said, we're playing Coventry on the Saturday. He said, what happened if I score at Coventry tomorrow? I says, Andy, you've not scored in 10 games. I said, if you score at Coventry, I'll drive you to Charlton myself. So anyway, at that point, I knew his head wasn't right. So he went over to the turf moor that used to get changed behind the goals, Frank, and then the offices were up at the far end, as you know. So I eventually got Sandy to get him, and I brought him in. I said, listen, Andy, forget it, you're not playing tomorrow. He said, what? I said, you're not playing tomorrow. I said, I'd rather play kids than you, because your headspace is all over the place. I said, so the polite way says, go and get your boots and leave. But it was a wee bit stronger than that, as you can imagine. I don't want to swear. Anyway, so by that lunchtime, Charlton were back on. $1.5 million plus $500,000 add-ons, which was $2 million. So we done the deal and we won at Coventry on the Saturday 3-1 as it happens. But anyway, and then I kept that $2 million. But my point was, I went to Sunderland and I got Andy Cole on loan for the same salary I was paying Andy Gray. And I can't tell you how good Andy Cole was. He trained like a Champions League player. He was 37, I think, Coley. He couldn't get about the pitch, but see, from box to box, for 40 yards out, sensational.
But he's been glowing about you as well. He said he felt reborn playing under you.
Well, I've got to say, I mean, Andy Cole is this is one of Europe's best strikers. And as a man, he came in, the way he trained, he passed the ball to a Champions League player, he conducted himself right, the boys loved him. He scored one of the best hat-tricks I've ever seen in my life, right foot, left foot, and a header. We were playing QPR, and QPR at the time, it wasn't Paolo, but they'd a Luigi Di Canio was the manager, and they went 2-0 up, Frank, in the first half, and I'm sitting there, oh my, and they were singing this Di Canio, and Loftus Road was on fire. Anyway, just before half-time, Coley banged one in, 2-1, come into the second half, got the other one, scored the header, made it 3-2, and big Adi Akinbaye, who I had scored, we won 4-2 that night. But Andy Cole's hat-trick, it was unbelievable, and he came in with a smile on his face. The players absolutely loved him, and I said to him, listen, the home games were a joy for him, because Turf Moor's a fortress, and it's under the lights, and the fans get behind the team, and they loved him. And away from home, when we were playing against a couple of teams, I said to him, listen, I'll sit you on the bench or whatever, so you come on later and do your stuff. But he was sensational. And then, this is true, at the summer, I wanted to sign him, but because we'd sold $2 million for it, and then we sold Kyle Lafferty for $4 million to Rangers. We'll touch on that as well. But we didn't have a lot of salary. And I said, Coley, I don't know when we get your salary. And I'm embarrassed that I wanted to offer you something less.
Yeah.
And no, just tell me what it is. I says, it wouldn't be... Anyway, cut a long story short, Colin Calderwood came in at Nottingham Forest and offered them something like 3 times the money that we could get to there. So to be fair, he went. This is true. And the 5th game of the season, we played Nottingham Forest at Nottingham Forest. And we won 2-1, but we had to win, actually, because I'll tell you in a second why. But anyway, we won 2-1, and I was walking off the pitch with him, and he came over and he says, Gaffer, that's me. I said, what? He says, I'm not enjoying it. He said, from the 6 months I had with you, and that, he says, it wasn't even the money. He says, I just left it and just played for nothing with you. He said, I absolutely loved it. And it was such a nice compliment. But he was
you know, he never meant it, though. You know, he was...
I was still happy to hear it, Frank.
There's no chance of professional footballers playing for nothing.
Aye, fair enough. Well, maybe no you right enough. What are you doing? What are you doing down there, Frank?
I think I found a leak.
You have found a leak?
Yes.
Wow. Well, I know the very people that can sort that out for you. Our new sponsor, EnviroClean Scotland, are perfect dealing with leaks, blockages, anything to do with your drains. They're brilliant, aren't they?
They're very good. You can't miss them. Huge trucks.
Big presence. You see their vans and their tankers everywhere. But the important thing is they don't just deal with the massive operations, the big industrial units, factories and so on. They also deal with domestic issues as well.
Small leaks.
Frank's found a wee leak. Blocked sinks, overflowing gutters, grease traps. They'll sort it quickly with modern kit and properly trained teams. So it's not just huge factories and large industrial drains. They'll come out to your house as well. No job is too small. Whether it's a stubborn blockage or a messy overflow, EnviroClean gets it fixed without stress. It's a fast, reliable service, and they've been keeping Scotland flowing smoothly since 1997. And get in touch if you do have any kind of small drainage problems, whether it's a domestic house or a small business as well. Or maybe if you're a football manager and there's a leak in the dressing room. There's been a few of them in your dressing rooms over the years, Pronounce.
A few leaks, yes.
But in Enviroclean Scotland. So if you want to find out more, visit evcsl.com. And Frank, what should people tell them?
Tell them Frank sent you.
Big players, and Frank's a bit like this as well. People have this perception of people, and they don't really understand how they are as human beings and everything else. Because as football was sensational, but see as a man how he conducted himself at the club, everybody absolutely loved him. Just a quick one on that on people, if you don't mind me telling you.
Of course, no, please.
Gary Cahill. So I had Gary Cahill at Bolton. Unbelievable player, went on to win Champions Leagues and Premier Leagues and everything. And Man City were due to buy Gary Cahill. And there was a fallout between the chief executive and Roberto Mancini at the time was the manager. And because we'd agreed 17.5 million plus Nedum Onuoha was going to come to us. Nedum Onuoha was probably worth about 5 million. He was a very, very good player, Nedum Onuoha. And I'd been happy to take him because I thought he was a very, very good player. So that was agreed, which was worth 22.5 million. Anyway, something happened at the Man City end that kind of broke down. So Gary then came in, started the season. They were constantly professional. And they were all after him, Spurs, Arsenals and everything else. It was just agreeing the price. So eventually they didn't, and it came to the January window. And he was out of contract in the summer. So Bolton, in their wisdom, decided that they were going to take 6 million for him. And I said to him, don't. That 6 million, he's better here and let him go for nothing in the summer, because to replace him or whatever is difficult for less money, and he's the best centre-back in the country. Yeah. So it haggled on a wee bit. And anyway, it was eventually agreed on the Monday night. We were playing Everton on the Tuesday at Goodison. And so everything was now agreed on the Monday. So I phoned him the Monday night. I said, listen, Gary, it breaks my heart. I said, but that's everything agreed. You're going to Chelsea. Everything's done. I just want to wish you all the best. I can't tell you how good, not only a football, but as a man, as a how you are. And you'll be badly missed, but we love you to bits. He says, no, it's all right, Gaffer. I'll see you tomorrow night. I said, no, we're playing Everton at Goodison, Gary. I said, but he says, no. He says, we're fighting down towards the end of the tail. I'm going to be there. I'm going to play for you tomorrow. And then I'll go to Chelsea. I said, Gary, God forbid something would happen to you. Yeah. He went, no, Gaffer, I'm going to be there. I've told him I'm playing tomorrow night at Goodison, and then I'll join Chelsea on the Wednesday. And you might remember the game. It was a horrible win, and Tim Howard scored. It bounced over Adam Bogdan's head.
Aye.
So the game goes about 12 minutes, Frank, and that bit with Stuart Holden injured and all the stuff that happened, Fabrice and all these different things that gang up in the club. And 15 minutes into the game, it's a howling wind, and Adam Bogdan comes to collect, and it just spins off the wind and right over his head. And I'm saying, Sandy, could you believe that? Anyway, David and Gog scored an equaliser for us, one each, and believe it or not, Gary Cahill popped up with a winner 5 minutes for the end. We beat Everton 2-1 at Goodison. But my point is, but a lot of other footballers would be like, see you later, I'm away to Chelsea. And here was this lad saying, no, I'm going to be there for my pals tomorrow night. My point is, there's a lot of really good people out there that people just see a perception of them and they don't understand.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely.
But that's football.
I love the kind of message as well. Yeah. Now, we want to talk about that. We had Kyle Lafferty on, Frank. You remember a few months ago, and he was talking a wee bit about the interest from Celtic and Rangers. I mean,
that's right.
As you can well imagine, that clip went nuts for us. So we'd like to get you talking about it too.
well, it was true. So Kyle was 6 foot. Kyle was 6'4", could run like the wind. Aye. Could score a goal. He'd scored an unbelievable goal. You might remember this for Northern Ireland against Sweden the year before that. That'd been 2006, I think. 2007, a 40-yarder, and it kind of brought everybody to the attention. When you see him playing, there was nothing that Kyle couldn't do. As I say, lightning quick, good in the air, could run, good skill, good feet. Probably never scored as many goals as he probably should have. His goals were, what I always say, like when I look at likes of Frank and boys like that, I think you get goal scorers and then you get scorers of goals, which is boys you can hit them for 25 yards. Me as a manager, I want the boys that score from 12 yards to the goal line. Yeah. That's where you get your goals. 95% of goals are scored in there. But Kyle could curl them in, he could do different things. So, but I had to raise money, as I mentioned earlier on. So Celtic had courted Kyle for like over a year. But Kyle's a big Rangers man. And I said to him, Celtic, I've done seeing you again. And, what about Rangers? I said, well, I've not heard from them yet. I want to go to Rangers and everything else. So, and obviously I'm a Celtic man. I'm here, well, right, okay. And Peter Lawler at the time Peter would come on with, I'll give you 2 million. And I said, well, I need to get something back. And I liked I like Derek Riordan, who'd Celtic had signed from Hibs and wasn't really playing. I said, well, I'm losing an attacker. Give me money plus Derek Riordan, we'll do the deal. He says, right, great. I said, but, he said, well, Peter said, I value Derek Riordan $1.5 million. I says, well, I knew you would, Peter. I says, it's $500,000 in my book. So if it's $3.5 million plus Derek Riordan, we'll do the deal. So this now came the end of the season. And my chairman came in and says, we need to get this money in for Cahill Lafferty. I says, no, we'll get it, chairman. If you just, with all due respect, just step to the side and let me deal with it, because I've heard that Rangers are interested. And the fact you've got Celtic and Rangers going head to head, we'll get our $4 million. Yeah. It's like, right, okay, do that. So anyway, Peter came back on, I'll give you $2 3/4 million plus Riordan, which was in my mind, 3.25. Yeah. I says, no, Peter, even if you can get to $3.5 million plus $500,000 of add-ons, after 20 appearances, 40 appearances, 60 appearances, there's $500,000 in you get. So Peter says, no, I'll not get to that one. Anyway, so then I think it was Campbell Ogilvie at the time that called anyway, from Rangers called anyway, and said, what about Cahill Lafferty? And obviously I'm in a great position. I said, well, looks if he's going to Celtic's, get Derek Riordan plus money, they're going to get to the figure. What figure do you need? I said, well, we need $4 million. I said, to be honest, my chairman will accept $3.5 million plus $500,000 add-ons as long as the figure gets to 4. And he's like, can you give me 15 minutes? And I'm thinking, 15 minutes? I said, yeah, I can give you 15 minutes, no problem. So it wasn't even 15 minutes. 10 minutes later, they rang back. And Rangers said, listen, we'll give you the $3.5 million split over 2 payments, which is fine. Everybody does that. Helps with cash flow and different things. He said, and $500,000 over 20 appearances, 40 appearances and 60 appearances. I says, perfect. So I've said to my chairman there, you've got your $4 million. So I rang Peter out of courtesy as you do. I said, listen, Peter, Rangers come in, the deal's done, it's agreed and everything else. And that's how Cahill went to Glasgow Rangers. But Cahill had always wanted, he was a Rangers boy, he wanted to go to Rangers, that was his team. And I've got to say, he played against me. He's a gem of a lad. His teammates love him. He's got a good sense of humour. He's bubbly, and he was a very good player. I actually remember, I thought years later when he played at Hearts, I thought he was a far more rounded player. Yeah. I thought he was, every time I seen him for Hearts, I thought he was sensational. And he's been on to have a great career at different clubs, but really, really good lad for sure.
He's a good player.
So, I mean, people watching and listening will be astounded to learn that Celtic dragged their heels getting a deal over the finishing line. who'd have thought?
Well, I think, in fairness, in fairness, in football, everybody has their valuations. Yeah. I mean, you've got to say as well, there's a lot of fantastic players that Celtic have signed. Yeah. Over the years and different things. And Celtic, the thing is, Celtic have a model of how they work in terms of signing. And the key for Celtic's model is Celtic have to arrive first. See if they're looking at young Frank McAvenny. If Celtic arrive at the same time as not even the big ones, any Premier League team in England, they're going to the Premier League because their finance are going to pay far more in terms of salary and everything else. Yeah. And that's why the plan, the policy that they have, they've got to arrive first. So Celtic are able to get in first for Van Dijk. Yeah. And then the other thing with Celtic is in the Scottish League is there's a ceiling on what you'll receive for a player. Because Virgil van Dijk leaves Celtic for how much was it, Simon?
Was it about 12 million?
12 plus some add-ons.
Then it was 70 million from Southampton to Liverpool.
I think it was 83, the total thing, right? Yeah. So you're not telling me in that space of time that he went to Southampton, he became 4 times the player he was at Celtic? No, he's just in a higher profile because it's the Premier League in England. Sure. So it's even just now, and I understand, because I mentioned this earlier about the strikers that should play for Celtic, so I understand the point that kind of fans are saying, well, where's the strikers? You lost, Kyogo, we didn't replace that, and even the ones before that. Because Celtic, and Frank will know this, Celtic not only won, Celtic should always have, for me, at least 3 top number 9s with a really good young one supporting that. True. That's how I kind of think. But of course, that takes money, it takes a lot of different things. But my point is, and fans will say, well, they've got 80 million in the bank. Celtic could go today and buy a player for 30 million, but they'd have to pay him £200,000 a week in salary.
No, that's a very good point.
So it doesn't. My point is, that's what the model is. It's been really successful. I get it. We want to do better in Europe and different things. But if you look at the trophies Celtic have won and the players have...
My problem is with Celtic is the size of the club only and the resources that they've got, not about spending the money. They should be able to identify players a lot quicker than other clubs. When you see, I mean, the boys that have went to Hearts, for example, the boy Braga and all that, and the winger, different class. I mean, where did they get them from? Surely we have some sort of a model that we can get players that we can bring in, stay for a year or two and sell them for extraordinary money. That's Celtic's way. I just think we should get better players.
Frank, in fairness, I agree with you on that, and I think this is a fan's point. But the bit I disagree with is that they have done that, but they've not done it lately. So I agree with that. I mean, even just now, I mentioned a little bit the wingers, and everybody takes time to settle in. But the wingers we've signed to this point haven't set the hair on fire.
No.
Both lads, Taneki and Bala, it's difficult to pronounce, but I mean, you would think that they're better. Yeah, you would think that they're better than what they're, because they spend that money. But my point is that when you arrive, Celtic arrive, they need to be ready to do the deal, get it clinched before somebody bigger comes in and takes them away from you. Otherwise, you're then just in a pool of players that really anybody could sign. So,
before I'm going to make my next point on that subject, just remember, everyone, please hit subscribe and follow us on social media and all the usual channels. Keep driving our numbers up.
It's free.
And
All free.
next week, Frank will be back in the country next week.
Yes.
And we'll be hearing a lot more from you. But what I was going on to say was Kazakhstan, the Champions League qualifier against Kairat Almaty. Dyson made us through 1-on-1 not long to go. He sticks that in the net. Celtic are in the group stages. There's not a boycott. There's not a protest. Everything's rosy in the garden. And they would have probably, because they gambled and didn't pay off.
Well, that ultimately that's what's happened, and that's where it comes back to the bit we're talking about winning. And that was a big thing. I mean, the Champions League, given obviously last year's Champions League and everything else, you want to follow that up because you want to show that. And I think this was the Celtic fans, they want to show that there's progress in the European front. But ultimately, it never went in. And then you've paid the price for that. But I've got to say, I still believe that Celtic team should have been good enough to beat Kairat. Both home and away comfortably. But they never.
It was a throwback to when we qualify, we'll buy players, and if you've got to buy players to qualify, I think.
That's Simon's point. It's a gamble. They've looked and think, we're still good enough to beat them, and then we'll get them on after. The other thing I would say as well, and recruitment's key in football now. Talking now as a manager, that's the biggest part of football, and the biggest example of that is Manchester United. They've spent more money than anybody, Frank, but the recruitment's been, with all due respect, for the money they've spent, it's been really poor. And that's the bit that Celtic had always been really good at. And of course, but the other thing as well is it shouldn't be just thinking about the transfer window there. For me, in my opinion, you should be thinking 2 and 3 transfer windows ahead. He's coming out of contract, what we're going to need there, and have those in the building before the other ones go out.
Because I want to ask a wee bit before we start rounding up about your time in India, and did you know much about the standard of football before you went over there?
I'd been offered the job in India years before I went, and anyway, I turned it down for one reason or another, and then I got a call in December, actually similar time, so 6 years ago, and about Chennai, who the club had offered me before. So they had a really bad start. They were bottom of the league, and they phoned. They said, "Listen, there's only 11 weeks to go. Would you come?" And so I looked at the games, and they had some really good players, a couple of Brazilians, so 6 foreigners. You were at that time you're allowed to 7 foreigners, but you could have 5 in the field. So I phoned Sandy, who'd actually just had the first grandchild, and I said, "Oh, Sandy, congratulations! I'm amazing being a granddad." He said, "Oh, thanks, Sonia." I said, "While I have you, do you want to come to India?" He went, "What?" I said, "I'm just..." So that's how it came about. I said, "It's only going to be 11 weeks. The bottom of the league, they can't win a game." So we went, but that 11 weeks turned into 16 weeks because we took them from the bottom to actually into the playoffs, to the playoff final. And we're very unlucky not to win on the day, but that was just a week. Well, we get back a week and then it was COVID. So, but it was a fantastic experience. Obviously, we did really well, and then there was obviously a clamour for us. I went to Jamshedpur, who's owned by Tata, and Jamshedpur is probably a club like St Mirren, but we actually won the league with them, it was like St Mirren won the Premier League, believe it or not, against Celtic and Rangers. So what we did, we loved it, and really enjoyed it. Really, really good people. And then obviously I'd come back to help Queen's Park, because Willie was sponsoring them, and we grew up in the Gorbals, where Willie grew up with my older brothers, and I'd known him. He'd been really good to me, through the years. Always met him at Celtic games, and I'll tell you a brilliant one as well. With the playoff final, I was manager of Burnley playoff final, and I got a phone call from Willie, and I picked up. I said, "Hi Willie, how are you?" He says, "Great." I said, "Listen, do you need some tickets for the for the playoff fight?" He says, No, I'm on to give you tickets." I said, "What?" He said, "Listen," he said, "9 of your family, all your cousins and everything, everybody that's going." He said, "I've got he said, we sponsor a box. He said, I've got you 4 tickets. You take them and use them for your... just an amazing man. I know 1 or 2 people try to give him a wee bit of stick just now about Queen's Park. I mean, he's poured his heart and soul, and obviously the finance he put into the club and everything else. I mean, Queen's Park's a brilliant club, and I hope they get through everything else. But Willie's he's a gem of a man, absolute outstanding man.
And he's been good to you as well, Frank, over the years.
I don't know if you know, only when I went in, I got in a wee bit of bother, and I had to get some money in, and I was going to sell my medals, and I tried to sell them off, and Willie bought them off me, and he just gave me money with the intention that when I get my feet again, I get them back. So, and I thought, well, wonderful. And then when I tried to give them back, I tried to give him the money, he wouldn't take the money off me. And I thought, and what Willie's like, he doesn't want any credit, and he doesn't want anything. But I just thought, I was saying to Simon, we were doing the call at the time, and I thought, I've got to say something, because, I mean, that's just a genuine, and he's helped me at home, got me at home, and he won't take it back. He's just a great human being, so fair play.
The charitable stuff and that they do is amazing. I mean, the amount of people they help, it's but he never ever wants to talk about it, because that's very private and that. But the amount of people he's held is unbelievable. But just on Willie and the Gorbals, if you don't mind, it shows you, like, in football, how we can all be brought down to earth if you ever try to get carried away or anything. But so my mates were in the pub, the Brazen Head, which used to be the old Granite City Inn in the Gorbals. So the Brazen Head, big Celtic. Anyway, so they're all in, and they were chatting about players for the Gorbals over the different years, different generations, or Paddy Crane and that, and then they come into kind of our generation, and my pal was in. My pal says, hold on a minute, if you're going to talk about really good players for the Gorbals, you better put Owen Coyle in that conversation. And a couple of guys went, what? He says, I like, played here, played there, started rhyming off many goals, many teams he played for, this and that, and played international, played Premier League. And so he said, my mate's telling me, he says, all of a sudden, I'm getting them coming round. You only call. He says, but at the same time as I'm talking, he says, there's this older guy just swinging back in the seat, just rocking back in the seat, no saying anything. And anyway, so there's 4 or 5 saying, that's a good shout, Owen Coyle. And the old boy just rocks back in the seat. He says, Owen Coyle, fucking no chance. And they were like, what do you mean no chance? He said, he wasn't even the best player in his own house. which was true, because
your 2 brothers.
Tommy was good. Tommy's a very good, but Joe was brilliant. Joe was a brilliant, but like the night out and different things. But it just shows you the humour in football, which we love. Only Coyle wasn't even the best player in his own house.
Now, I hope you're enjoying the cup of tea we gave you.
I'm loving it.
And it is tea in it. It's not gravy or anything.
Oh, my God. Oh.
Do you know this story, Frank?
Oh. So I'd been at Dundee United player coach with Ian McCall, and can I just say, well, people are talking managers, and you see what Martin O'Neill's done. Right. Ian McCall's an outstanding manager. Yeah. Outstanding manager. The only thing he did, in my mind, did wrong at Dundee United was when Eddie Thomas was cutting back with the money. Colley dealt with that with all the players, and he should have just let, I think it was Mr. Carnegie was there, he should have let him deal with it. Because, and that was the thing, because then the players think it's Ian is taken away from him, and he's not. Yeah, but Ian McCall could manage anywhere and anybody. Outstanding football man. But what was the story? So I was at Airdrie, I got a phone call from Jeff Brown. He says, Owen, I'd like to speak to you about being St Johnstone manager. I said, I've not applied for your job, Chairman. He says, no, I know. He said, but you come highly recommended. Seen the job you did at Falkirk, and you won the league at Falkirk in the Championship. He says, I know you just want to play as long as you can. He said, but there's come a time, though, those legs are going to stop. He said, and your brother Thomas played for me. He says, so I know the family, I know, the values and the principles you have. He said, I said, well, okay, I'd love to speak to you. He says, okay. He said, I'll be down in Glasgow in an hour. I said, well, actually, Chairman, I'm actually up in Dunkeld. Aye. So I had a lodge up there. I've got to say, it was the only lodge I was ever in, but it was a holiday lodge, Frank. So anyway.
Lodge 614 Dunkeld.
So anyway, I says I'm actually up at Dunkeld. I said I'd bought it when I was at Dundee United. He says, right, I'll be out in 10 minutes. He was coming from Perth to Dunkeld. Yeah. So I'd said to my wife, Kerry, you're going to have to take the kids out. It was a day like today, it was torrential rain. She said, what are you talking about? I said, the St Johnstone Chairman's coming in to speak to me about the job. Aye,
all right.
Yeah, very good. That's all right. We don't mind that. So anyway, she's got the Max on. She's got the buggy, the pram away, and the rain was torrential. Anyway, he comes in. As he comes in, I'm trying to make a good impression. Hi, Mr. Chairman. I said, do you want a tea or coffee? He says, I'd love a coffee. I says, great, Mr. Chairman. You sit through there. I'll sort it. So he's went into the wee living area. There was a breakfast bar. I came to look through to see him. Yes, Mr. Chairman, no. So I'm looking for this coffee. Can he find the coffee? So I eventually find it, because I'm teetotal, but I love my cups of tea. And the mugs we've got, I mean, our mugs are about double the size, huge big mugs. So anyway, I found the tea, made the coffee, sugar, milk, both. He sat down. Over an hour. Couldn't have went any better, Simon. Brilliant, Frank, brilliant football chat. And he was dead engaged and really enjoyed it. And he finished and he said, listen, Owen, I'll be in touch sooner rather than later. I says, thanks, Mr. Chairman. So he leaves. So I check my mobile phone and I've got 11 missed calls for Kerry. It was on silent, obviously. So she's out in the rain. So I phoned. I says, Kerry, asked me to finish. Thank God, I'm just round the corner. We're soaked through. So she comes in and you know how wet it's been. The rain was still running, trickling down her nose and that. And she says, that better have been worth it. I says, Kerry, it couldn't have went any better. She says, yeah. I says, the only thing that threw me, I said, I couldn't find the coffee anywhere, but I eventually found it, gave him his coffee. And she says, we have not got coffee. I says, aye, we have. She says, that's Bristol gravy, you clown. I'd made him a full mug of Bristol gravy with milk and sugar. And I was like, I was beside myself. So I picked the phone up and I thought, I said, Mr. Chairman, it's Owen. It's aye, son. I said, I'm really sorry. I've got an apology. I said, what's that? I said, turns out that wasn't the coffee I made you. It was Bristol gravy. He says, aye, I thought it was a funny wee tang of it. Anyway, true. He said, while I've got you, I want to offer you the job.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That was
that's
true.
Good.
100%.
There you go. That's
There's
it.
another story I wanted to ask you about, because a lot of folk will remember this from it was the Queen's Park Dundee game at Ochilview.
Yeah.
Which is, it wasn't the playoff, it was the final game of the actual season.
It was the final game of the season. We had, so I'd come back from India, winning the league at Jamshedpur, and Queen's Park they were struggling. I think they'd drawn 10 out of 12 games, and they weren't even guaranteed to get in the playoffs. So we came in, got them the playoffs, and then we went to play Dunfermline, who Dunfermline were second bottom of the championship, but not second bottom as they'd been losing games all year. They'd been bottom, they started winning Big Yogi, so it was a really tough game. Anyway, we managed to beat Dunfermline over the 2 games, and then we were set to play Airdrie, my old team. Now, Queen's Park had played Airdrie 7 times that season between the league and the cups, and they hadn't beaten them. Yeah. So anyway, and Airdrie also as well, I should say, Airdrie finished 21 points ahead of Queen's Park in the league. Right. Cove had finished 26 ahead, they won the league. Queen's Park won 4th. So anyway, we managed to turn them over and got Queen's Park promoted. Yeah. So that was us then in the championship the following year. So with the same budget, but I had 1 or 2 good players. And I'll get to the game. The reason I mention this is because come January, we're 3 or 4 points clear, but I had Simon Murray. Simon was fully fit. He was outstanding for me. Top scorer in the league. He was absolutely flying. There's a story about a contract, I'll tell you that another day. But anyway, cut a long story short, on the day of the transfer, the last day of the deadline window, Leanne was there and Marin was there at the time, and sold him to Ross County. Yeah. And I brought Connor Shields in from Motherwell to play with Simon. Had we kept Simon Murray, for me, in my opinion, we'd have won the league by April for sure. But anyway, it went to the last day of the season. We had to beat Dundee, and the game was at Stenhousemuir. That was the other thing, but I suppose without singing our praises, the job we did at Queen's Park was unbelievable. We played 1 home game. We got to play at Hampden 1 game that year, beat Hamilton, I think 4-0. Every game was away from home. Yeah. And here we were at Queen's Park, had never been a chance to get into the Premier League. Yeah. Anyway, the Dundee game was 3 each at half time. It was an unbelievable game wasn't for me, but for people watching it as a neutral.
And they had a big support as well, Dundee.
Well, that was the thing, because I'd said to Leanne, I said, Leanne, you can't give Dundee so many tickets, because we had, I think, 600 in the stand at Stenhousemuir. That's where the Queen's Park fans. But behind the goal, if you had any sort of atmosphere, because Ayr United been there, Partick Thistle been there, it was like Goodison. We used to suck the ball into the net. The fans behind it, it was unbelievable. So anyway, cut a long story short, I think Leanne said to me she tried to resist the police. Anyway, Dundee must end up with about 3,000 fans at the game, all behind that goal. The atmosphere for them was incredible. Cut a long story short, we get beat 5-3 in a day, which meant Queen's Park won the league and won in the Premier League. Had we won,
Dundee won it, you mean?
Dundee won. Had we won at Queen's Park, that would have been us in the Premier League, which would be unbelievable given the squad and everything else. But anyway, so we lost out. And then, of course, because we given Dundee that many tickets, Frank, they just all spilled onto the pitch. And being an ex-Dundee United player, the guy that scored the one to get him in the Premier League, so a couple of them came and had a kick at me. I don't want to run Dundee down because it's a great club. 1 or 2 others was, spitting here, this and different things. So, and Gary Bowyer, who's a friend of mine, we'd already shaken hands. I wished him well. I like Gary. And then he came back over. He says, come on, Owen, I'm going to walk across the park with you. I says, Gary, don't be daft. I says, we're for the Gorbals, we're all right. He says, no. He says, no with this, that's not right. And to be fair, we walked across with Gary. It kind of abated all the fans. But the fact they were allowed to even come and do that. And so kudos to Gary Bowyer for that.
Well, that was good of him getting you out of that situation.
100%.
So we're just going to watch your time a wee bit, but you've asked you your favourite goal. You told us that. What about the manager that you've maybe learned the most from? You must have played with quite a few over the years.
I was really lucky. I mean, I'm full of respect for all my managers. Even I mentioned, I never seen eye to eye with Bruce Rioch, but his football knowledge was second to none.
Yeah.
And very, very respectful of that. But I love playing for Alec McLeish. I love playing his man management, how he went about, and obviously Alec was the manager because we had to go. Frank will remember this. We had to go and win at Ibrox when Rangers had spent £50,000 in hospitality to have a 9 in a row party because we went on the May Bank holiday. It was live on Sky.
I remember it.
It was live on Sky. May Bank holiday. Rangers won. They'd won 9 in a row. There was 50,000. I'm going to do the conga to George Square. It was all, and they'd spent. I think it was £50,000-60,000 to bring all their ex-players back. Like it was a formality. Yeah. But I'd signed for Motherwell in the January, hit the ground running, scored a few goals, got us off the bottom of the league. Yeah. Now we're in second bottom. We had to get out of second bottom because there was a playoff at that time to get ourselves safe. So we went into that game having to win as well. Yeah. And Big Alec, to be fair to him, Alec McLeish, his preparation was unbelievable, had us ready, had us fired up. And as it happens, we went out and we won the game 2-0. And the thing we scored the 2 goals. Oh, that's right, it was me. So there we go. I saw.
It was a Brumble end as well, I'm pretty sure.
That's right, So but we had a good team with good players. The second one, Durante brought Mickey Weir down. And but the first, so we won the merit. But what that done was it took us out of the Rangers. Subsequently won at Tannadice the following week. Was in the Loudrup header for Charlie's Cross. And but I've got to say that Rangers team, they were unbelievable. That 9 in a row team, the Rangers team. Yeah. They were when you think even the teams that Tommy had, God rest him, Tommy Burns, they were unbelievable teams. So it tells you the strength of what those Rangers teams, as we say.
So as we finish up, you're still a relatively young man.
Yep.
Have you got another managerial job in you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no doubt. I've been offered a couple of things, and I'm like to think down to earth. There's no any ego about it. You know, if there's the right job comes about, whether it's England, Scotland. I mean, in England, I've only worked in the Championship and the Premier League. That's not to say you couldn't work in League 1, 2. Of course you could. Football's football. But if it's the right thing, and I think because I think nowadays a lot of times you're kind of putting out fires. What you want is working with good people. I've been very fortunate to do it at different times, and if you get that, then happily get in. And I mean, you only need to see Martin showing everyone about experienced managers what they can do and what they can do. So we know the game. I've been really lucky and fortunate. Yeah, I think even in the Premier League, I think I'm only one of 10 Scots-born managers that's managed over 100 games in the English Premier League. Sure. So we know what we're doing, we know the game, but good players help you achieve.
Have you got another really big job in you, do you think?
I mean, listen, we're all capable of doing jobs. It's getting the opportunity.
Sure.
And if you get an opportunity, then it's up to you. What I did want to say before finishing, Frank might remember this. It was a brilliant story with Frank. We're playing the Masters in the Odyssey in Belfast.
All right.
So Frank was playing with Scotland, and obviously I hadn't played for Ireland. I was playing with the All Ireland, and we actually won it. And it was I was still playing at Airdrie at the time, so I think I was 36. So Frank would have been 42, I think. Anyway, so we'd finished the tournament, and it was brilliant tournament. As I say, I'd known Frank when I was young because of my older brothers and loved him to bits and everything. He says, Coyle. I says, aye. He says, listen, got it all sorted. I says, what's that? He says, the top nightclub in Belfast, all sorted. VIP, champagne all night. It's going to be so busy. There's all this thing and everything else. We're going tonight. I says, Frank, I can't go. He said, what do you mean? I says, I'm playing on Tuesday at Ibrox against Rangers in the Cup. It was actually Shotar Village's debut. And he went like, what? He says, it's all right, Coyle, I've checked. I said, what you've checked? There's a 6:30 flight out tomorrow, gets you in at 7:15 to Glasgow. You'll make your training, no problem. You'll be there. I says, right, okay, Frank, let me think of this. All right, I'll do it. He says, you coming? I says, aye, but just let me phone Kerry. And I'll say to the missus, listen, I'm not coming back tonight. Frank's organised a nightclub, VIP, champagne all night. I'll be back in the morning with that. Aye, just leave it. It was brilliant. It's just his reaction. Just leave it, Coyle.
I'm very good. I don't want to get in trouble with Kerry, that's for sure.
No, fair play, but no, it was brilliant. And then, as I say, we played together, and I had the privilege of playing together with, there was a brilliant charity event for Alzheimer's at Hampden a few years back.
Yeah.
Myself and Frank, Andy McLaren, Simon Donnelly, Chris Boyd, I think Big Mark Guidi had organised it, and we played together in a team. We actually went on to win it. I think Frank scored the win on the final, and there was some young women professionals playing, so it was all mix of teams, and it was brilliant. So I got the pleasure to play beside them, so it was all good.
We spoke about one or two opportunities to possibly play for Celtic, and I think it was maybe written about a few years ago as well. There might have been an opportunity to become manager. I don't know whether there was much in that or not.
I mean, that was in we'd won the playoff final at Wembley, and I think Gordon had resigned in the about half time. So when I went to do my press conference, you won the biggest game in the world to be in the Premier League. And more it was about, your favourite for Celtic, this and that, and what have you. So again, of course, there was huge interest there at the time for sure. I'd just been obviously just got to the Premier League, and we just bought a house down there because the family was happy. Kids were just in a new school, different things. But I can't say that I never. Over the years, haven't shed tears about it, because at the end of the day, listen, it's the best club in the world.
Hey,
so there we go.
Same yet, Owen.
I think that boat might have sailed, but the bottom line is it doesn't stop you. I mean, when I get a chance, as much as when we played against them or managed against them, you're doing everything in your power to win those games. But ultimately, that never leaves you.
You're not 73 yet, are you?
No, yeah, no,
right,
yeah.
So I think, by the way, on that subject, Martin O'Neill doing so well at the age of 73. Age isn't any barrier, is it, really, if you've got experience? No,
I think Martin showed. No, correct. And I think Martin showed, because obviously Martin, everybody has different styles of management. Some people like to, be on the grass, and they've got somebody else that kind of deals with other stuff. Martin is very much man management, knows the game, gets the best out of people, and he might have, as he did, some younger coaches doing different things, and they all play their part. That's why it's important that you have a good backroom staff, as Martin's always had. Sure. But what I loved about Martin showing what he could do is because for his last couple of things, when maybe it didn't go so well, people are always quick to say, this and that. Yeah. And that's going to happen in football. It doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get a punch in the nose somewhere along the way. It's how you, as a player, it's how you bounce back, how you react to it. Frank showed that as well. When you have difficult times, even out with football in life, how you bounce back and you show everybody what you're all about as a person. So, but in terms of experienced managers, of course, they've been there, they've seen it, they've had the knocks, and they know the game. And we all know the game, but good players help you to achieve success.
I've just noticed what was that you had in your hand a minute ago there, Frank? What pint? What was it? Was it a pint of what?
It's just
there you go. See, you were telling us you'd stayed off it.
Tiger beer. Good promotion.
All right, excellent. I hope you're watching. Tiger Beer Corporation.
I was going to say that, Frank. Aye. You've not lost your touch with that.
See the thing about product placement, you've got to actually agree the deal before you put it on the screen.
Yeah, good people.
Just giving them a free advert.
Brilliant. Listen, you'll not be long getting big sponsors for sure.
Well, listen, this has been an absolute joy. In fact, on the subject of Bolton, I was thinking too about, you mentioned a couple of times Alan Thompson you played with as well.
The group that we had, the young ones, it was just a brilliant balance. And when you've got good characters like that, and I mean, footballers love being in amongst football people and reminiscing and chat. I mean, there's a million things we've not spoke about that maybe for another day, who knows.
Well, what we'll do next time, we'd love to have you on again, Frank, in the studio.
Yeah. Brilliant, that'd be good. Sorry, I'm not there. No, I'm not. But anyway.
Right, well, listen, we'll wrap it up there and let you crack on with your. What time is it, Frank, at the moment?
Time I was going
it must be about
time I was going for dinner. 10 to 8.
So it's 3 o'clock, 8 o'clock. You're going for your dinner, right? Well, you enjoy, and I'll see you at the weekend, and we'll
right, pal.
We'll be back in the studio next week.
Thanks very much.
Meanwhile, Owen Coyle, absolute pleasure.
I loved it, Frank. I'll see you soon, pal. Enjoy the rest of the holiday.
Take care,
thanks, Simon. Really enjoyed that.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot. And we will see you again very soon for another episode of the Let Me Be Frank podcast. Take care, everybody. Cheers. Bye bye.